From Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA, and the home of hot chicken, it's the Rick Altizer Show. Sit back, buckle up. Rick will talk with the movers, shakers, and creators who put Christ in Christian entertainment. He's a man who's clear so the world can hear. Here's Rick Altizer.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My guest today is author, actress, model, and now screenwriter, Sam Sorbo. Sam, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. As I don't know if you know this, but I interviewed your husband, Kevin Sorbo, 2 years ago.
Yes, I did know that, and he said you were a fantastic interview. So I'm expecting great things from you, Rick.
All right. Yeah, we were in his hotel room at Opryland Hotel. So
yeah, that's right.
And he was so beat. We were at the NRB convention. But anyway, you and your husband, Kevin, have made a new movie, Let There Be Light, was in theaters, did very well. And that movie is going to be available on DVD, and it's also available in churches. So we're going to talk about that today. So I'm just excited to have you here.
Well, I got to tell you, the response to the movie has been so outstanding. It started, we launched it on October 27th in theaters, and the word, first of all, my husband and I both got so many emails on our websites from people who were profoundly impacted by the message of the movie and just by the storytelling in the movie. And they were telling us that audiences not only applauded at the end of the movie, and I don't know the last time I've been to a theater where people actually applauded, but they sat in their seats until the end of the credit roll. And then as they left the theater, they talked to complete strangers. And I think the reason for that is because this movie is a very human story. And so what it does is it points out to people our shared humanity. Right now, we live in such divisive times that people are encouraged to hate on other people. I mean, we see it every day in the news. And this movie encourages people to connect with other people, that we have more in common than what separates us. And so that to me has been the greatest blessing of this movie. I'm so thrilled to see people impacted that way.
And there's also a strong Christ-focused message in this movie as well. And I really appreciated that myself when I saw it.
Yeah, well, that, of course, that is the thing that brings us all together, right? Is that we are all God's creation. And so, that's what I made the movie for, is to allow people to catch a glimpse of the hope that we have as Christians. And I juxtaposed, of course, the loss of hope that people who don't have a faith in God or in Christ, that they lack that hope. And that's a horrible way to go through life. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so I want people to understand that there's hope out there. There is forgiveness. Today we live in such an unforgiving time, but we all need forgiveness, not just a few of us, every one of us needs forgiveness. And I think one of the hardest things we have is because we're so unwilling to forgive others, we can't forgive ourselves, which sets up really almost a cancerous cycle within ourselves, because we've all done wrong things. We know we all can self-convict. And so we all need forgiveness.
Well, as obviously a former radio show host, are you doing the show anymore?
I do piecemeal. Right now, I'm really focused on promoting the movie. I want the message of the movie to get out to as many people as possible. We are currently in Walmart stores and obviously on Amazon. And you can go to the website also, lettherebelightmovie.com. But I'm really hoping people will buy the DVD, not only for themselves, but for their friends. Because the one thing that we said when we launched the movie in theaters is, these days, you can't really invite somebody to church. You're looked at askance. It's sort of politically incorrect. But you can invite people to a movie, or you can give them a DVD. And so that's what I'm hoping people will do, because, we were in 800 theaters. We had a really solid release, but there were a lot of places that the movie didn't get to. And so I'm hoping that those people who haven't had a chance to see the movie, now they have the opportunity to get the DVD.
Yes, and it's also going to be in churches as well through the Faith Films Network. And,
yeah, I'm very excited about that, actually, because we're offering the movie. Basically, it's a fundraiser for your church. So if you haven't seen the movie, or even if you have, your church can go to faithfilmsnetwork.com, and they can get the movie for free and offer it as a fundraiser And in that way, more people can see the movie. You can instead of inviting somebody to church, you're inviting them to go to see a movie at your church, which is a little bit easier, more palatable, right? And the church actually can earn money. And churches are always into fundraising because they have so many outreach projects, and I really want to support that.
Well, in the movie, Kevin is an atheist who
he's a horrible, horrible man.
A horrible atheist who and there is redemption. It is a story of forgiveness. It is a story of redemption. I know as a radio talk show host, you had one of the largest syndicated talk shows, the Sam Sorbo Show, and so I know that these issues are kind of important to you, and so there was this transition. You've been an actress. You actually started out, which we're going to go backwards a little bit, at Duke. You were a biomedical engineering major at Duke.
Like that has anything to do with anything.
Biomedical engineering. Oh, what is that? And then from there, you go into, well, you know what? I think I'll go be a model and an actress. How do you transition from biomedical engineering to modeling and acting?
Well, I was raised to get a good education. That was the focus of my whole upbringing. And so I chose to go to Duke. But wouldn't you know, I was so anxious while I was there because everything hinged on my grades. And I started working on an ulcer. And when I was, 17, 18, and it was just too much. So I took a year off. And during that year off, I started modeling and realized that I could earn a fantastic living modeling, travel the world, learn foreign languages, do basically everything else that I wanted to do, or I could spend 8 more years in school and study. Yes. And so eventually I just said, when I went back to school, I got the best grades I'd ever had because the pressure was off because I knew that I could, quote unquote, make it without my education, without Duke. And so eventually I left Duke and I pursued modeling full time, and that led to acting because that was actually something that I'd always wanted to do. And here I am, a homeschool advocate.
There you go.
It is an amazing thing. You're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio, 89.1 FM, 1160 AM, Nashville.
And we're going to get into that, too. You have 3 kids that you homeschool out in the California area where you live. But, you've done TV, you've done movies. You were in Hercules.
Yes.
With is that where you met Kevin?
That's where I met Kevin. I played a princess.
And and the princess fell in love with Hercules.
Yes, it's true.
You've been married
on screen and off.
Yes, you've been married 20 years now, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
20 years. So can we? And then from I do want to get back to Let There Be Light. We're going to talk about the transition from acting into screenwriting. But before I do that, can we talk about navigating marriage in Hollywood? 20 years. Both of you very active in Hollywood. You with your own talk show and homeschooling. There's just a lot of things you guys are juggling. Can you talk a little bit about doing that in the Hollywood community?
Well, I don't know that there's a Hollywood community. I don't know that we're actually kind of, in a sense, members of the Hollywood community. We pursue our passions, which are storytelling, filmmaking, acting, right? And so we just do what we do, and we are different than the majority of the Hollywood community. That's true. But Hollywood also applauds individuality, right? So that's what we're doing. We're pursuing what we love, and we've actually, happily been very successful at it. I want to tell you, I'm not thrilled with a lot of what's coming out of Hollywood, obviously, especially in light of what was revealed last fall with the casting couch, as if people didn't know that there was a casting couch. I mean, there's a reason, right? There's a reason that we have that term. But I think what happened was, people started to wake up to the sort of hypocrisy of the lecturing. And, we had the Oscars last night, and I turned it on for a few minutes just to see if there were going to be some outrageous, hashtag Me Too kind of things happening. And what I noticed was there was still the tremendous flaunting of the female body, still, in spite of the fact that women are clamoring to be taken for their non-physical value, right? For their brains, value me as an individual, not as a sex object, and yet they dress like sex objects. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, I guess at a certain point, I just went, the hypocrisy is, here's the thing. I get it if you want to be valued as a sex object, but then don't value me as a sex, if you're going to do that, right?
Yes.
So anyway, I had the idea for this movie because I'm trying to raise Christian children in a secular culture, which is sort of, in a sense, created by Hollywood, this culture that we live in, right? Mm-hmm. And the more I realized it, our faith is challenged on a daily basis. What, you're a Christian? That's ridiculous. Oh, you think the world's only 6,000 years old. Oh, you don't believe in evolution, and all of that. And I thought, I wonder what it would look like if an atheist had his faith challenged, because I'm convinced that atheism takes a lot more faith than Christianity.
Absolutely.
And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, wow, that would make a movie that I would want to see. So I decided to write it. And I called a friend who's a very well-known Hollywood screenwriter, because I realized a while ago that you can't get something made if you don't have, quote unquote, a name attached, and especially as a script, right? Because scripts they're a dime a dozen. And I reached out to Dan and asked him if he would co-write it with me. He wrote The Hurricane with Denzel Washington, Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. He was the showrunner on Michael Landon's long-time series, Highway to Heaven. And he jumped in with both feet because he wants to write. Writers like to write human stories. It was enough with the Arnold Schwarzenegger, get out of the chopper kind of dialogue for him, And so he jumped in, and I was so excited to be able to work on a project with him. And then within 2 weeks, the weirdest thing, Sean Hannity, completely out of the blue, called Kevin and said, hey, Kev, he calls him Sorbo. Sorbo, I want to do a faith-based movie. Do you have anything that we can work on together?
Wow. Completely,
totally out of the blue. And Kevin's like, well, as a matter of fact, so the three of us, Kevin, Dan, and myself, we flew to New York, pitched Sean. In half an hour, he jumped in with both feet. This is unbelievable. The genesis of this movie is so beyond the pale. It's miraculous, really. Because, in Hollywood, the project's always chasing the money. The money never chases the project. And the project typically runs out of breath before the money does, right? So to get something funded in and of itself is amazing, but to have the money come find you and say, hey, I want to fund you.
Wow.
Although I'll tell all your listeners, if anybody's out there and wants to fund a movie, I'm more than willing to talk to them.
And then I'm next in line after her. So,
that's right. You're a filmmaker too, yes. So you know this, right?
Yes. Well, I thought that was so interesting that you've transitioned, over into screenwriting. Is this the first feature movie you've written?
No, I wrote one years ago that was stolen and made into a big blockbuster movie.
Okay.
We didn't pursue it because getting into a lawsuit with a studio, forget it. You're not going to win. The cards are stacked against you. But I will tell you this. I would never have written this movie if I hadn't chosen to home educate my children, because home education taught me that I am capable. And this is something that I did not know before. And that's why my book is called They're Your Kids, An Inspirational Journey from Self-Doubter to Homeschool Advocate. And I believe that our public institutions are teaching us that we're not capable. In fact, most parents say to me, I could never do that. I could never homeschool my child. And their child is like third grade. And I'm like, did you graduate high school? Oh, yes, I did. You're a high school graduate, and yet you feel incapable of teaching a third grader? So think about that, and then ask yourself why you're willing to send that third grader back into the system that turned out the likes of you and is probably worse now than it was when you went to school, because everybody agrees our schools are failing. Mm-hmm. We're 27th or worse in the world. We're the United States of America, and we can't even keep up with other developed countries. I think we're behind Lithuania now. It's unbelievable. And so that's why I advocate homeschooling, because home education is not just about the children. It's about the adults. It's about the parents and what the parents learn. And what I learned is, basically, if I put my head to something, if I dedicate myself to something, I can probably get it done. And I don't need a teacher at a blackboard who has instructed me specifically on that particular thing.
I know some moms who are a little intimidated. It's like
Sure.
They feel almost like my child doesn't listen to me. They don't obey me. That homeschooling would be terrible. They wouldn't do anything I say. How do you communicate to that mom?
Oh, my dear. Part of the reason that children don't obey their parents is because the parents cede their authority to the school when the child is 5 years old. When you take your child to kindergarten, you are tacitly informing them that, one, you are incapable, and two, you have no more authority. The school does. So the child comes home and says, Mommy, you have to sign this. The teacher says you have to sign this. Yes, dear, I'll do exactly what the teacher instructs me to do because I am under the authority of the school now. So it's no wonder that when your child gets a little bit older, they start questioning your authority and challenging you.
In case you didn't realize it, you're listening to a really nice guy. The Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio, 89.1 FM, 1160 AM, Nashville.
Okay. So you think it should be homeschool should be started right from the get-go, right from the beginning?
Well, I'm not saying, look, I believe in homeschool. So I think that homeschool is the way to go. What you presented me with was this idea that at the age of 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever, the parents are going, I could never do that because my child challenges me too much. No, you are the authority in your own home. And if your child is challenging you too much, then you better bring that child home so that you have the opportunity to pour into them, because otherwise you're going to lose them entirely. And frankly, for Christians, we send our children to public school. They learn that God is a joke, that the Bible is a fairy tale, and that evolution is true, and survival of the fittest is the law of the land. This is a tremendous disservice we're doing to our children, instructing them that they are accidents of nature. Life has no value if it's just accidental. So it's no wonder that we have the school shootings that we're having. It's no wonder that we have bullying problems. We're teaching bullying in our schools.
Yeah. Wow. Well, man, we could just do this for 3 more shows. I see how this is. You're such an easy interview. I love this.
Oh, thank you. Well, listen, if you want more information, go to my website, samsorbo.com. I've written 2 books now. The second one is a devotional for families because I want to bring the idea of virtue back into the culture. I'm trying to get parents to talk about virtue with their children, talk about godly characteristics with their children. And by the way, if you send your child to school and you have a favorite teacher, there are a lot of Christian teachers in our schools that are trying their best in a flawed system. And there are a lot of great teachers out there, by the way. But you can get this book for a teacher in the schools because I don't know where children are going to learn good characteristics. You can't expect a child to come home from a full day with children their own age and have learned any kind of morals or principles or even common courtesy, Yeah,
the ACLU, hassles the school if they try to teach morals, which, like the 10 Commandments or something like that, like thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
Gee,
sadly.
What a terrible thing.
I know. I know.
Well, and kind of tying this into the movie, those morals, those values, then you were able to, as a writer, get that into a script. Is this the first, faith-based movie that you wrote?
This is the first faith-based movie that I've written, but I wrote a TV series before this that, again, I went through the whole thing. Never would have done it if I hadn't chosen to home educate, by the way. We sold it to NBC and Sony, and unfortunately they decided to shelve it because they had some other projects that they thought were competing with it or something. But that's how this came about. And so now I've really sort of discovered, in a sense, my passion, my calling is because to move the culture, you use storytelling. That's why Jesus spoke in parables. He took heavenly issues and brought them into focus with earthly characteristics and earthly storytelling. And in that way, he sort of reached across the ages, if you will, or reached from a timelessness to the time that we are in. And so I believe in storytelling, and that's why we have the culture that we have today, is because of the storytelling that's coming out of Hollywood. And
Yes.
A lot of the stories that Hollywood is telling seek to position the viewer to root for evil. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are a lot of villains that we are called on to root for because they're just slightly better than the real villain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a dangerous thing, I think, for the culture.
And the culture is so wrapped up into self-identifying. We identify who we are. We define who we are. I am a black female. I define myself. There is no God. God doesn't define who I am.
Right. I define myself. Yes,
I am
exactly.
God, and I define myself.
Yes.
In this culture of self, I call it a religion of self. We're in this religion of self, where we, we're self-defining. And so is script writing, screenwriting, is this something you wish to do more now? Is this something that you're going to be pursuing more of?
You know what? I haven't yet decided. I kind of really miss the radio as well. So we'll see. I've got a couple of projects that I'm looking at producing, not writing. So we'll see. But you bring this up that self-worship has become the new norm. And there are a lot of people out there who are saying, yeah, so what? So people have to feel good about themselves, and people have to understand themselves, and they need to self-identify, right? The problem is that when you get into self-worship, then it's whatever's good for me. That's survival of the fittest, right? And that appeals to a lot of people, especially because they were raised on that. I know, because I went through public school and I was raised on survival of the fittest. But survival of the fittest is not the best way to conduct a society. Because if you have survival of the fittest, then you obey the laws that appeal to you, but you ignore the laws that don't appeal to you. And the problem with that is if we become a bunch of non-law abiding citizens, then the law has to get stronger to protect the weak. And with the law getting stronger, we move to totalitarianism.
Yes.
The only way that this culture, that this society, that the prosperity that's been created in this country can survive is if we have a law-abiding citizenry. That means a moral citizenry, people who understand that the law is there to protect everyone equally, and that it applies to everyone equally as well. And then when we go into self-idolatry or self-definition, we'll get away from that. And that's a very dangerous thing. We stand to lose our culture.
And, it's the Christian culture that is... it's a post-Christian society. I don't know if there ever was a Christian society, but the concept that there is a God, he defines morality, he defines who I am, the fact that we've torn that down because we hate God. We hate the concept of God.
But we're replacing God, right? We are replacing God, not just with self, but with government. This is also very dangerous, right? Because if government is God, then we're living in a totalitarian society. What was the battle cry immediately after the most recent school shooting? Government has to fix this. Government better do something. Mm-hmm. No, but not just the guns, but government. Go to the government to fix it. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem when we seek for our lives to be ameliorated by our government. Government better take care of my health. Government better take care of the guns. Government better do this, do that. We're giving the government too much power.
I wanted to ask what it was like being directed by your husband, because Kevin also directed this movie.
Yes.
We got a minute left. So
you can ask him what it was like, what it was like to direct me. It was a lot of fun. We work so well together. We really see eye to eye, and when we don't, we resolve our differences very amicably. So it was a really great experience. My boys are in the movie too. If you want more information, go to lettherebelightmovie.com, or you can find it on Amazon. It's in Walmart. It's on walmart.com, obviously, and it's out on Blu-ray and DVD. I really hope people get the movie, buy it for a friend, share it, because this is really my calling. I really want people to have hope, and that's what this movie gives. It gives people hope.
Sam, thank you so much for being on the show. I thought we were going to talk about the movie, and it ended up into so many other things. It's like we could do 3 more shows. This is just amazing. I just really enjoyed this. So informative, and
thanks, Rick.
Lots of things to think about. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
A lot of fun. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
If there's a show you've missed, you can go to my website, rickaltizer.com, and catch up. Or you can listen to my podcast in iTunes or wherever you hear your podcasts. Just search for The Rick Altizer Show. Altizer is spelled Altizer. I want to thank you for listening. Hey, would you tell a friend about this show and share the love? Be sure to check us out again next week as we discuss how we communicate the gospel through media to our culture. Let's be clear so the world can hear. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.
The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to